Okay, let's go ahead and get this party started. Welcome to the Potsdam Connections info session, Purpose House for Kids. I am Kimberly Walker. But starts 524 Policy Program Manager, and I co-lead this wonderful work with drum roll, please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Nancy Vu, she, her pronouns, and I'm the Positive Family Connections Program Manager. Thank you for coming this evening.
And our lovely colleague also online with us.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah J. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a member of the Best Arts for Kids Data and Evaluation team, and I actually don't focus on the Positive Family Connections program, but I'm here today for my colleague who does, who fortunately for her is out of town right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah J, for being here. Filling in. So for today, we're going to go over Best Arts for Kids. Most of you are already familiar with our work. We want to do a quick refresher, which we always do. We're going to go over the elements of the request for proposal, which is why you're here. We'll talk about evaluation and reporting overview. Sarah J will help us with that. We'll go over Zoom grants, which is our vehicle for you to apply, and talk about criteria and answer any questions you may have. That sounds good. Can I get a, oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
I like it.
Okay, and then we have just some logistics here on how to ask questions. Feel free to add your questions to the chat box and or unmute to ask questions during the question and answer session. And then if you have questions later on, you can always email Kimberly, and I are both the RFP leads. And these are our email addresses here. And after this info session, we will be posting FAQs online in Zoom grants in the library.
So Best Starts for Kids, our vision is happy, healthy, safe, and thriving. We want to see babies born healthy, kids thrive, and people grow up to be happy, healthy, successful adults. And we sure you do too. So hope you share our mission with us.
Okay, and our mission at Best Arts for Kids strengthens families and communities so that babies are born healthy, children thrive, and establish a strong foundation for life, and young people grow into happy, healthy adults.
And we are grounded in equity, and this is a statement from our Children Youth Advisory Board, and this is, equity is an ardent journey towards well-being as defined by the affected. So we want to make sure we always center equity in all of our work in the lens which we move forward. And also leading in love too, that's our other words that we also like to lead in love.
Yes, and as Kimberly was saying, BSK and King County, we're, as a whole, we're committed to equity and social justice, and it's the foundation for the work that we do. So this is part of our CYAB and equity statement, and CYAB stands for Children and Youth Advisory Board. And they're comprised of King County residents and leaders that are geographically and culturally diverse, giving perspectives that make recommendations and monitor the distribution of levy proceeds. And some of these bullet points are from the equity statement that they established, which is equity is an ardent journey toward well-being as defined by the affected. Equity is disruptive and uncomfortable and not voluntary. And equity is fundamental to the community that we want to build.
Our principles for Best Arts for Kids, there are 4 of them. That's promotion, prevention, early intervention, and policies and systems change. And so you'll see under all of our strategies, components of this work that's happening at each layer.
Okay, and funding basics for BSK 2.0 as we are in round 2 now. And it's a 6-year property tax levy. There's 19 cents per 1,000 of the assessed value. And the average cost is about $114 for a $600,000 dollar home, $600,000 home. And then the March 2021 projected revenue for this is $879 million.
You'll see our investment amounts for 2.0 under child care, capital projects, TA, technical assistance, capacity building, homeless prevention, investing early, which is P5, sustain the gain, 524, which is the work that I help lead, communities matter, and the evaluation. So it kind of gives you a bigger picture of what it looks like as a whole over the next 6 years or so.
Okay, so how does it connect to larger BSK work? As Kimberly was talking about, sustaining the gain is the 5 to 24 investment strategy area. And positive family connection strategy, which is the strategy that is releasing this RFP, is part of the sustain the gain investment strategy area. And there are also 9 other strategies that are included in the 5 to 24 investment strategy area.
Mm-hmm. So positive connections will fund programs designed to strengthen parent-parent engagement, kinship care relationships, intergenerational and cultural heritage bonds, restorative practices, personal development for young people, parents and caregivers, and the connections among these family members. Our overall goal of funding is to help strengthen and build positive relationships between parents, caregivers, and their youth in their community. So if you're doing any of that work, then you are in the right place.
Okay, so who is this RFP for? This RFP is open to nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations, tribes and tribal organizations, public or governmental agencies, and all having service areas. They need to be within King County.
Yes. I do see a quick question inside of the box. Linda Porter asked, did you say King County expect to gain $879 million for next levy from levy? Yes, that is correct. That is correct. So the breakdown we have before that shows you how the funds will be used over the next 6 years. All right, so this RFP for Positive Family Connections seeks organizations that offer programs that support the relationship between the youth and their parent caregiver. This might be a little redundant, but you really want to make sure you guys are offering up the programs we would love to fund. So the heart of programming should be focused on deepening the relationship and connection between these family members. So the adults who are in young people's lives, we want that relationship. We want to see programs that are really supporting a healthy, I should say, relationship between those two folks.
I'm going to take a minute to talk a little bit now about data and evaluation. Our data and evaluation team is guided by these 3 principles of partnership, collaboration, and accessibility that we hope you'll see reflected in our work together. And first, I'm going to talk a little bit about using data in your application, which is, I know probably what the application is, what you're all focused on learning about tonight, and also just give you a little bit of a heads up about what to expect for reporting if you are funded. Next slide. As you work on your proposal, you will see some criteria in your in that RFP that you might think, some data would really help me speak to this. But you don't need to use data. Where it helps you tell your story, we want you to be able to access the data resources that King County has. So if you're looking through that RFP, you see that criteria that tells you what our reviewer is looking for and how your proposal is going to be rated. You might see questions like understanding equity or disparity issues, filling service gaps, and meeting community needs. And those are places where data is one of the kinds of information that can help you make your pitch in your proposal. So think about what would help you tell that story. And then hopefully our resources will help in a couple different ways. Next slide. So these are some of the great places to look for data about King County communities that we have created. This top link, and you'll be able to download the slides off the blog. The top link is for the Best Starts for Kids indicators, and that's a great first place to look for data about youth and families in King County. Communities Count is another resource. It has a smaller number of data indicators, but it's got a lot of great other resources about accessing and using data, and it has a written description for everything. So if you're like, I'm more of a words person than a numbers person, Communities Count can be really helpful there. And then anything else that you're looking for, you might find on community health indicators, but we know that our data resources definitely don't cover everything that you might find useful. So think creatively. There might be state or national level data that speaks more to your community, even if it's not specific to our county. You know, if it's like a language group or a racial ethnic community that's not well represented in local data, you could often find that from a state or national organization, or most importantly, your own data. You might have data that shows how you've been successful in working with your community partners, that shows who you've been serving. That could be some of the most valuable to consider including. Next slide. Oh, and I wanted to say, if you want to look at one of those dashboards that's linked there, just let us know in the Q&A, and I'd be more than happy to give you a little tour. Some people love them. Some people don't find them super intuitive to navigate. So we want you to feel comfortable using them, and I'm more than happy to do a demo later if that's something folks are interested in at this point. All right, so looking ahead, if you are funded, all Best Starts programs participate in performance measurement and reporting. Kimberly and Nancy shared with us about the public source of this Best Starts for Kids funding. And, you know, part of the strings that come with that is that we need to be able to show everybody, you know, where are the taxpayer dollars going to. Reporting is one of the ways we do that. It's also important for us to use so that we can understand, are we serving the folks that we are reaching for? Are we having the impacts that we want? So when you do your reporting, there will be some numbers, some quantitative data, and some narrative data. We also now, this was introduced into the new levy by County Council, we are required to report zip codes for participants receiving services. So that is something we will be asking for if you are funded through this RFP. The good news is that you do not need to create an evaluation plan as part of your proposal. We'll be working together with funded partners to create performance measures and data collection plans. So it's not something you need to invest your energy in at this stage if you don't even know yet if you'll be awarded. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that could look like on the next slide. But another thing we want to point out is that we do have some tools available to help measure impact, including the Youth Development Measurement Tool, which is something that we custom developed for Best Starts for Kids partners who were looking for better, more strengths-based, more culturally relevant ways to measure the impact that they were having with young people. Next slide. These are some examples of some of the data performance measures that have been reported. It's not to say that every grantee will report all of these. It kind of depends on what your program does. But just to give you some ideas, we'll be asking about demographics of the folks that you are serving or working with, about the services you provide, and about the outcomes that you're achieving. So that could look like number of youth parents and caregivers enrolled, percent that were satisfied with the programming they participated in, percent that gained knowledge or new skills, or percent that gained a new connection. And then once a year, we'll ask you to fill out a survey that basically says, you know, what changes have you made? What successes have you experienced? And also, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced? I think it's pretty low key, but it's really helpful way for us to get some of the big picture across Best Starts for Kids of what are our partners proud of and what ways could we, continue working on our systems changes to support them better. And I think that's it. I would love to hear, I don't see anything in the chat box right now specific to data and evaluation, but I would love to hear any questions as well when we move on to Q&A.
Thank you, Sarah J. I think this is me, Nancy. Yes, you didn't say anything. I'm just going to jump in here. I see your questions in the chat. I will circle back to them in a moment. Okay, so the funding that available is $2.7 million and some change, okay? That's what's available for this first round of the strategies funding. And the application due date is May 24th, 2022 at 2 p.m. So if you heard me say May 24th, type it in the comments. Let me make sure y'all actually hearing me. May 24th, not May 23rd, not May 26th. I said, what? It's May what?
I'll just say it, 24th.
Thank you. Yes, Marianne. Yes, April. Yes, Emily. Why 2 p.m.? Well, I don't have a clear answer for that, but our contracts folks feel like 2 p.m. was a good time, so we're gonna go with it. So instead of 11:59 p.m. On the dot, so it's 2 p.m. on May 24th is the due date. Okay, so please get it in. Try not to wait last minute. Try not to wait till 1:30. Try to get in at least an hour before 2 o'clock. Okay, just words of advice. Contract period is July 1st. 2022 through December 31st of 2024, okay? And the funding request limits overall is $230,000 per organization, okay? So the first 6 months, hear me loud and clear, the first 6 months will be essentially your planning period. So you have about 30 grand to use in that first 6 months to do any planning, to deepen your work. If you're trying to pilot something, whatever it is that you're applying for, that first 6 months is only 30 grand. And then depending on what you ask for, the rest of the 2-year contract would be the additional amount, not to exceed the total amount of $230,000, okay? All right. And then we are anticipated to award up to 12 grantees. So up to 12 grantees is our number. I see questions flying. I'm gonna come back to those once we get done with the basics here. Okay, I promise. Go ahead, Nancy.
Great, thank you, Kimberly. Okay, so how to apply, and you're going to apply for this RFP through Zoom grants. Some of you are familiar with Zoom grants, and some of you Zoom grants may be new. So I'm gonna just go to the link and just do a demo here for you. So the link is in the RFP document, and it's also on the BSK blog for when you go to apply for the Positive Family Connections RFP. When you click on the link, it'll take you to this screen here in Zoom Grants. And if you're an existing Zoom Grants user, you'll just need to log in your info here. If you are a new user, you will need to click this button here to create a new Zoom Grants account. And in order to apply, you have to be logged in, but you can still view this RFP if you are not logged in. So when you get here, you'll see lots of information. These top blue tabs here talk about the description and minimum requirements along with the library. And then as you scroll down, you'll see another set of blue tabs here, and this is actually the application with the questions in it. So you can go back and you can hide these tabs up here if you want to. In the description, it just talks about the overview that this RFP is being released for Positive Family Connections, and it talks about the timeline again here, and the communication. So we can go ahead and hide that tab, and you can always show it again as well by clicking on it. The next section talks about minimum requirements. You can also hide this tab as well as you're working on your application, just so there's not so much information up here. And then this section is very important. It's the library. And in the library is where it houses all of the important documentations that you would need to reference for your application. So here you can see, if you click on here, this is the actual PDF of the RFP. You can also click on the attachment B, which is the budget workbook that you'll have to upload as well. And there's also a proposal checklist in this library. And after this info session, we will have the FAQs uploaded in this library section as well. So please be sure to consistently check Zoom grants for any updates and uploads of any amendments to the RFPs or any FAQs that are uploaded here. Okay, and so that's the library. And the next blue tabs here, these are the actual questions. So this first tab here is proposer information. So you'll click on the tab and scroll down. Just be sure you answer all of the requested information in this tab. Again, we talked about zip codes, and so that's a required question. And then you'll just continue to click next, and it'll take you to the next tab, which is unscored questions. And there will be a few unscored questions that you could just write in the text box here, a summary of your proposed project, you know, what ages you plan to serve, and then a question in regards to the being vaccinated per the King County Executive issued executive order. And be sure that you submit your unscored questions here as well. Then moving on, we have the next set of questions here. So these are the main project narrative questions, or the scope of work. And as you scroll down, there will be 10 questions here that you would be you know, typing up your answers to. And with Zoom grants, there is no save button, so it automatically saves. So as you're working on your application and you're typing in your answers, you can just click out of the box, text box, and it'll automatically save. So you don't need to worry about looking for a save button. And so there's 10 of those questions. And then the next tab here talks about budget and documents. And in this tab, budget documents is where you would upload your budget workbook. So here you can see it's yellow and required. So it is a requirement for you to first, you would download the budget template, type in your budget, and then go back over here and upload it to this tab. And there's also a piece here. If you are, if your proposal is in partnership with a school or a school district, any required documents per their policy and agreements must be uploaded in Zoom grants. So you would upload all of those here. So for example, if you would need like a letter of support or MOU with the school or school district, those would be included here. And those are the main important 4 tabs that you need to know for the application here in Zoom Grants. Definitely the library. And again, if you're new to Zoom Grants, so Zoom Grants can be a little bit finicky. So just make sure that you do get all of your documents and complete the application in time. We don't want you to be late for the deadline or anything like that if there's any technical difficulties with Zoom Grants. Also, at the top here, it's not very big, but you can see this help link right here, which can be helpful. So if you're having issues while you are filling out your application, you can go to this help link and it will give you some tips here. You know, make sure you answer the questions, fill in each field for each tab. Here's an application tip sheet that you can go to. If you have any questions regarding the RFP, you can click contact admin here and it'll automatically send an email with your question. You can send an email to the RFP leads. And if you have any technical issues while working in Zoom Grants, you can just ask Zoom Grants right here and it'll send an email to questions@zoomgrants.com. And I think that is all I have for Zoom Grants.
And let me please tell you that we do not know your passwords. We cannot reset your passwords. We are not the ones that ask for technical help in Zoom Grants. So really rely on that help button to help Zoom Grants help you navigate those issues, because we won't be much use to you. Now, once you are a grantee and you have some issues, there's things on the back end that we can assist with that makes sense. But for this process, initially, they are your folks to tap into. All right.
Okay. Okay. Kimberly, do you want to do this one or do you want me to?
Sure. I just want to let you know you're not in slideshow no more. You see the top of your, that's what I was pausing for you. I will continue on while you work on that. So again, proposals must be received via Zoom Grants no later than 2 p.m. on May 24th. And actually, I think that the timing, the reason why it's 2 o'clock, because we've had some issues where, you know, it was either 5 o'clock at the end of the workday or at the end of the day, and folks didn't, it's harder for us to be able to know if we have a full house of applications collected. And there's some timing issue with that. So I think that's why we went for 2 o'clock, or our contract folks went for 2 o'clock. But get your application in, please do not delay in doing so.
Right.
No worries. So Nancy, I've already said you are responsible for checking in onto Zoom Grants consistently, you know, while we're in this process, you know, for any changes or updates. The FAQ sheet will start today with the questions, you know, in the answer portion, but we will continually be, any emails we receive, any questions we receive, we'll be answering all those directly to the FAQ sheet. So if you send me or Nancy a question via email, we're not going to respond to you via that email. We're going to say, hey, please check for your answer in the FAQs, you know, in 2 days or 24 hours or whatever it may be, okay? So know that the library is your friend. Yeah, so just make sure that you allow yourself enough time to troubleshoot anything that comes up your way, okay? All right, next slide. See the questions coming in. I acknowledge them. We're going to get to them. So the RFP release date is April 12th. So now we did our job. Yay, we did it, we did it. Okay, so online info sessions today, hey, it's happening right now. And deadline to receive technical assistance is May 17th. Amended from our RFP, which said May 10th. So we were corrected. So it's May 17th, the last day to request support from our amazing TA team, okay? I think some of them are on the line tonight. So thank you guys for all your work. So deadline to submit questions via Zoom grants is May 18th, okay? So questions you may have, last time to submit them is May 18th. Applications are due. You can unmute and say it if you want.
May 24th.
Oh, yes. Thank you. May 24th, 2022 at 2 p.m. PST time. So it'll go through being rated and reviewed through May 25th through June 9th. And then we may have an application interview period. And then we will get notifications out in June, and then contracts discussions will happen between June and July. And hopefully July is when we will start the brand new contracts for our for this wonderful strategy. So that is the quick and dirty of it.
Okay, RFP rating and review. So you want to carefully review the rating criteria, which is in section 9, the selection process of the RFP on page 13. The review panel will closely follow this scoring rubric, and all proposals submitted will go through a formal review process. And the appeals process is also outlined in the RFP.
Okay, so as we've already mentioned, we are providing free technical assistance to all of you who choose to apply and choose to receive support. It's available to applicants to eliminate barriers that might prevent you from seeking funding. Again, deadline to request that is May 17th, 2022. The TA can help you figure out what is the right fit for your program, give you guys the help to best answer questions for defined supportive data, and also support applications review, including editing and budget review. TA is not a grant writer, however. So if you're looking for that, you'd look elsewhere for that, but they are here to make sure that you're on the right track when you apply. All right.
Okay, and the application assistant should email the consultants directly. So we encourage you to reach out to a TA consultant as early as possible. We can't guarantee technical assistance consultant availability within 5 business days of the deadline. So within 5 business days of May 24th, which is why we put the deadline of May 17th. In there. Assistance in languages other than English is available. Just let a TA consultant know your language need, and BSK will try to accommodate that. We also encourage you to only contact one TA consultant at a time and allow them 24 hours to respond before contacting any other consultants.
All right. As you know, this session is being recorded. It'll be posted onto our blog, which announced this opportunity. If you have questions, please feel free to email me, Kimberly Walker Harrison or Nancy Vu. Again, contact TA support directly. And then you will also see the glossary of terms listed in the RFP document. And Nancy, I can't read the last bullet point because it's covered up on my screen.
Oh, so just use the checklist to make sure your application is complete.
Yes, complete your application. We really want everyone to apply to the strategy. You feel like you have programming that can definitely meet the purpose of this strategy. Okay. Let's go down to the questions. We'll start with the ones in the chat, and then we will open the floor for those to ask them verbally, okay? That sounds good. Give me a thumbs up. All right. Let me change my view. Let me get to the chat. Oh, oops. All right. So Sisters in Common, can our church and community center apply for child age 524 service program? Yes, you can. I will respond officially in the FAQs. I think there's a little more language to go with that in particular. But yeah, you can definitely apply. Thank you for your question. And next question is from KJ, for K Jones, sorry. Are there any audit requirements for BSK funds? Is this program work for hire contract or something else? So yes. Is Bonnie on the line? No. So we do have a compliance team that will go through, and also a financial team who will go through your invoices that will come to you to see how your cost centers are set up. So there is definitely a very eye on the ball process. We call it coaching to compliance. So it's not to be like, you're fast, like, okay, let's help you get on the on track. Or if you're doing great, hey, here's some ways to think a little bit differently about how you're doing what you're doing. Or you're great, keep going. So there are some requirements if you are funded that you will need to adhere to. We do walk you through all that you need, so you're never left unknowing. And then so we call learning circles that will take place. We'll let you know what's coming up on the calendar. When we learned from our first round that'd be great to have a calendar for all of those lovely things that pop up. But we will walk you through that process when it's time, if you are selected. And then it's a program of work for hire contract or something. Or hire. Tell me what you mean by that, Kay Jones.
Well, in a work for hire situation, like say, for example, I'm an independent consultant.
Mm-hmm.
I do work for someone, I get paid, and that money's mine. Mm-hmm. In reimbursement contracts, money can be clawed back. In certain situations I've seen with the county was clear that the money was always theirs even after you were paid. So I'm trying to understand what kind of situation this program is with respect to the funds.
Well, for us, we will contract with an entity, with a organization, right? So if you are working with them or subcontracting with them, how that happens would be on your end. We would be paying invoices to that said entity. So what I can do is follow up on that question also in FAQs. Nancy's taking notes from me so we know who we follow up with, so you can double check back. So I'm not sure. I just know that when we contract with folks, we're contracting with ORs, CBOs mostly. We have not contracted with independent entities at this point. So I will double check.
Oh no, it could be a CBO or behavioral health agency. But I guess where I'm going is to make it super clear.
Yeah.
Even after it's paid, excuse me, whose money is it? Is it the county's money, or is it the entity under contract's money?
Once we pay it out to you, it is your funds. However, you are accountable for those funds. So until those funds are spent, we are going to ask, hey, where did that money go? How did you spend it? You spend it on what you're supposed to spend it. So you're still accountable to us to say how you spend it, but we don't like taking money back. So we prefer you actually carry out the work that you're contracted for. So like, for example, when we did extension for contracts, right? So folks who had not spent all the funds they had within their accounts already, we didn't say, hey, that's our money, give it back. We said, okay, what's your plan to spend down these funds so that you complete your contract A, B, the money is spent out, so we don't have to take it back. So that's been our experience. Does that answer your question for you?
Partially. And then if you have a minute, I'd like to follow up on the audit question to be a little bit more precise.
Okay. Well, I will say though, I'm not the BFO for
Okay,
BFP,
that's
so
fine. I mean, if
I'll do my
the
best.
information is available someplace, that's fine.
Yeah.
I know in some circumstances, I'll say there's always an audit cloud that sits over the funding, in that at some point the county can ask for a full audit at the cost of the entity that received the funds. Is that going to be the case with this program?
Well, I can't say that it won't be. I mean, oftentimes there's reasons why that happens. So I will answer that question officially for you via our BFO, so you have a clear answer on that, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. All right, we're gonna move on down the line. Oops. Okay, so Mary, can you define testimonials should look like? Mary, you want to give me what you mean by that?
I can't remember where it was in the RFP that it said that you should include testimonials.
Oh, okay.
Testimonials.
So if you want to share like, you know, a bit of narrative, and Sarah J, you're probably the best one to kind of talk about that, please.
Yeah, I think maybe while we answer another question, I will just try to search through the RFP and see if I can see the specific use. But, you know, if you would like to include testimonials from partners that you've worked with, or from participants or clients that you've worked with that help you tell the story of what is the work that you want to get funded through this RFP, that's, you know, a great thing to consider including. We, from an equity perspective, just want to make sure that everybody whose words are being shared, that, you know, they know what's happening. So like if you are working with young people and somebody says to you, this program changed my life, I'm really getting along with my dad now, I don't know where I would be without your program, you know, you might want to say like, hey, can I quote you on that? Is it okay if, you know, I put this quote in things like where we're trying to seek other funding for this program? So if you do use a testimonial, make sure that whoever's story you're sharing has the opportunity to give their permission for it to be shared, and that it's being shared in a way that they feel comfortable with. So that's what I'll say off the top of my head, and I'll just double check through the RFP to see where that word's being used as well.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Okay. And then continuous programming. Sarah J, can you check for that term too, and where that's at? The only downside of taking questions at the end, you have to remember exactly what context for all of it. Okay, so we'll keep on moving. Mary, we'll get those answers back to you, okay? All right. Sorry, my hand keeps slipping on my cursor here. Just curious how you ended up with number 12 organizations that get funded. 12 was based on our amount that we have to spend, and essentially wanting to provide enough funding to actually do the work. And so we decided that the $230,000 was the number we wanted to offer per grantee, and therefore, based on those numbers and calculations, 12 is where we were landed at. So there's no other, if we could, you know, fund 50, we'd love to, but that's not where our funding, it's not where our bank says. So we're doing 12, up to 12.
So can I jump in, Kimberly?
Yes,
This is the next question. So I found testimonials. Question 6 says, please describe your experience working with the population you plan to serve. please attach testimonials of their experience working with your organization. Consider factors such as relationships with and deep knowledge about the focus community, support from organizational leadership, and then there's a couple other factors like that. So with that context in mind, thinking about how the reviewers will be looking at this, is there anything you would want to add, Kimberly and Nancy, about like what you mean by testimonial or what you're looking for there?
I think essentially it's sharing like what the experience that you're bringing and what has already been done and what does it actually look like. So I believe when you share your story, you're giving us an insight into the work that you've been doing and who you guys are as an entity. So that's pretty much it. So.
And then I found the continuous programming as well. That's in the scope of work. It says funding is not for, pardon me, one-time projects or events, but rather continuous programming.
Yes. So essentially means that this funding is not to fund like a conference that happens this year and next year. It's to actually fund this program is ongoing. So continuous programming. If you have, if you've been doing, let's say your youth programs, that's what you do. That's part of your body of work for your org, then great. But if you just wanted to fund, a series of conferences for like one-time, one-off things, that's not what this funding is for. Okay. All right. Question from Jane: should the first 6 months 30,000 be part of a budget? Is the first 30 in addition to the 230? So no, the 30,000 is part of the 230. So the 230 is the max period that you can apply for. So the 30,000, I mean, essentially, I don't see folks who would apply for less than $30,000. You can if you wanted to. In our mind, we're like, okay, 30,000 cap for the first 6 months is what we definitely would like to get out the door. And then if you are successful in the programming that you put forth to us, then you move on into your 2-year contract. We'll do a slight amendment to that. And then whatever the amount that you asked for that programming is 2 years is what you would receive at that point. So when you are doing application, it's meant for you to lay out the whole lay of the land for basically 2 years and 6 months worth of funding, which cannot go beyond $230,000. Okay. All right. Jenny wants to know, how will applications be ranked? Is there a geographical consideration? So in the RFP document, you'll see our rubric for for the criteria and how many points each section is worth. So that's how you get your points. For the geographic consideration, I mean, our goal is to fund all of King County. So we don't want to leave any holes or gaps throughout the county. So that's our goal. So which is why we are collecting zip codes to make sure that we know where we are actually, serving, A, B, as folks who are doing the planning, making sure we kind of reach every pocket of King County. It's kind of the goal for us. So there's not necessarily an extra point if you're south, or extra point if you're east or west or north. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Does that answer your question, Jeannie? Oh, sheesh. Sorry.
Sorry, it took me a second to get off of mute. And
No worries.
yes, thank you. It answers my question.
Awesome. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Linda asked, if we apply within a collaborative framework, can we request additional funding? In other words, if several related by stakeholder organizations, age-related, apply together, is it reasonable to assume we could request an increase in allowable dollar amount? So if you can go beyond $230,000, right, Linda? So, yeah. So no. So essentially you would have a lead applicant who would be your front person, so that if the application is for that body of work, that's that body of work. Now, if you chose separately to apply for funding that's different from that body of work, that's something different, something else. But if all of you, a collective collaboration applying for this one strategy, you have to have a head person, a leading agency to do the application, listing everyone who's involved, having your layers of agreements, so on and so forth, saying what you're going to do, but that would not increase your amount of money.
Okay, we're just exploring. I see other questions coming up about that, but thank you.
You're welcome. Who's on the application review committee? Jenny, we are still recruiting. So essentially it is a mixture of community members. You have some county staff, you have some other government staffs that we collaborate with, we call our BSK cousins, parents. So it's a mixture of folks who we bring together. And so we are actually still getting that solidified. But yeah, so if you are not applying for this pot of money, so you're probably not gonna be on this call, but if you're just here because you're curious and you want to learn the process of going through this, send me an email. But if you're applying for it, no, you can't do that, okay? All right. Okay, sorry. All right, if we want, so George says, ask if we want to work with children in foster care in support of them to reunify their parents or relatives, which zip codes do we use? Well, I think wherever you're serving the families at, that you just list all of them, right? So if you're serving families in South King County and North King County, you're going to put both the zip codes down. A lot of our grantees serve the whole county. Some serve just one pocket of the county. So it's really up to where your base of folks that you're serving is located. Again, there is no minus or plus points for a certain area of King County. It's everyone, we want to serve as many people as possible throughout all of King County.
Yeah, that's helpful. So we're thinking about one of our programs that actually is statewide, and what we have is we often have kids that are placed in foster care outside of King County, but the relatives or parents might be here. So, or the kids might be here in King County and the relatives might be in another place. I just want to make sure that if we're going to write this, which address do we use in order to qualify for them being in King County?
Right. That's a great question. I guess if I was working with a family who was in King County, and the child they were trying to get a hold of or support of was, let's say, in Yakima, then now we use that parent's, address. We fund King County. So essentially whomever you are funding needs to be, that zip code needs to be a King County zip code. Now where the reach goes, if it goes, to Pierce County, we have a little bit of that, but our goal is that we must be supporting and funding youth, family, and children who are right here in King County. So just when you're doing it, however you communicate that to us, think about like make sure you're giving us the full picture so we understand that the work is happening here and not happening somewhere else.
Okay. Yeah, I think I got it. I think, yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Oops. All right, Margaret. Follow-up question about testimonials. Will Zoom grants ask for testimonials to be uploaded in question 6, or should they be included in the narrative? Nancy, remind me how we have that listed in Zoom grants. Please.
So it's just part of the question in number 6. Which is, so all of the questions are part of the narrative questions. So all those 10 questions are the narrative questions.
So you do it within that box and that question. So not upload separately. It will all be done in there. All right, Rena, can we select multiple zip codes? Yes, you can. All right, and Betsy's as, so is it that subcontracting situation? So Betsy, what I was talking about, and I hope I'm saying your name correctly. So subcontracting, sometimes we have grantees who, let's say, for example, you're providing a feeding program, but you also subcontract with folks to come in to help with literacy or financial literacy, for example, right? So you may have an agreement with them, you're paying them from BSK funds because you put that in your application that this is part of your work. That subcontracting is what that would like to look like, you know, for us, and that's fine. We don't necessarily, we need to know, but we're not necessarily micromanaging that component of the work. Is that answering your question? And there's lead agency. So that, I guess we don't see that as being like subcontracting from that standpoint, but I guess it kind of is. If you're doing a collaborative application, like kind of like a collective, and you have the lead person. Let me follow up with you on that. It sounds a little tricky, but we kind of look at that a little bit differently than actual subcontractor for a specific body of work versus a collective that's coming together to do one body of work together. So Nancy, can you flag that for us to go back to also, please? All right. And if I miss your question or something, let me know, because I'm having a hard time with the chat using my cursor to go down. It's kind of silly. Don't know what's going on here. Does Barb is asking, does BSK have a funding category just for kinship like visual? No, we don't. We don't. So this strategy calls out kinship intentionally, but we don't have a BSK kinship strategy. All right.
Can I just do a quick follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate BSK's partnership around addressing equity for children raised by relatives outside the child welfare system. There's a lot of funding within the child welfare system, but we don't have a lot of funding in our county to support families, relatives that are raising their relative children outside that system. So I really just want to express my gratitude to the county for addressing equity in that way. And I appreciate Linda's question about collective application. I hear your no, but I just want to say that our kinship collaboration, you know, is six organizations, at least six, working together to do that equity work. And we need about $400,000 a year to do that, what we're currently doing. So it would be awesome if we could, you know, all sort of apply as a collective instead of individually compete with each other. Even better that there would be a kinship pot of money, but I hear your no, and you know, this might be advocacy to bring to another body, but I think that yeah, I just thank you for your clear answer on that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And in that saying no for that piece, I'm also saying think creatively. Like if there's one big collective, you divide them into two smaller pots to go after specific money for the specific part of that whole overall collective vision, right? So I'm saying you can't all go for this doing this one thing. But if you break it up a little bit, you guys still working together to do smaller pots, but different chunks of work. That could be a workaround. That's it out loud. Let's say a workaround out loud. This is recorded too. Oops. But I'm saying think outside the box. Like we're not limiting, how you get there. We're just saying we can't do it this specific way. But there's 2 lead agencies who want to take it on, and you have said, okay, we're gonna take on support groups over here. We're gonna take on navigation services over here. That could be a way to do that work. Just saying. Putting out there. But I do hear you, Barb. And my heart for this particular group of folks. So I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay. Shoot. Okay. Here we go for, oops. Angelique. For phase 1, it's a $30,000 to be allocated towards the execution of phase 2 activities for cannot and might be utilized towards wages. With regards to wage, are there guidelines provided? Are a percentage of the funding that BSK has determined should be allocated towards the program manager facilitator. So essentially that 30,000, sorry, I just lost your question, dang it. Oh man, sorry, 1 second, guys. Okay. So basically we're calling that $30,000, and Nancy, jump in if you have thoughts. It's essentially a planning grant, right? So if you're using someone's using time to do that planning, that's fine. That planning should be working into that bigger 2-year contract, of course. But we're not putting a bunch of barriers on that $30,000, other than you need to have presented to us a very clear plan for how it will be spent. If you're spending it on staff to do planning, we don't have an issue with that. If using it as doing a pilot project to lift off a project in the next 2 years, that is fine also with us. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that does. Thank you, Kim. I mainly just wanted to know, especially if this grant, let's say, creates an opportunity for to bring on, if we wanted to bring on extra staff or something to help facilitate kind of the vision for this, if that, when I was reading about the auditing and so forth, I just wanted some clarification on, like, is it assumed that some of these dollars are going to go to staffing as well, or is the intent for the funding to go to the program itself, and then the entities are covering the cost of staffing, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. So we don't have, again, so there's no real barrier one way or the other. What we do ask is that you're very clear with your plan up front. The only way that, but that could be like kind of like knocked down is if it's not clear on what you're doing. Tell your whole story, what you're trying to do from A to Z, so that those who are reviewing understand what you're actually doing, and to say, hey, we're gonna bring this person on to open up a new opportunity to do this work for planning. So this part's gonna be maybe just all salary, but this will actually feed into this 2-year project or this 2-year worth of funding, doing X, Y, and Z. So just be very clear, tell the story as clear and concise as possible. So no problems there.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and I know there are several questions around this, but if we apply as the lead agency, can part of our proposal programming be provided by an agency with two, this is where my cursor, all right, oops, with 2 agencies working together? Yes, that's fine. Again, lead agency is the main person who we end up contracting with, but if you're telling the whole story, like I said, about what's actually going on, who's doing what the agreements are, we love to see people collaborate. That's not a problem. So just be very clear. Like roles are clearly defined. There's a clear understanding. You have documentation of that clear understanding so that we know what actually is happening, who are the players at the table, who's doing what, and the why you're choosing to do this together. That's also a great way to tell your story too. So yes, that's fine. Oh, okay. Thank you, Betsy. I'll follow up with you. All right, Jenny, one more. Yes, we are. So Jane says, yes, we are pit against one another to compete for funding, and this does not serve the community. Right. So we're not talking about competing, we're talking about collaborating, right? So figure out how you can collaborate creatively to get your community what it needs, period. Working together. Okay. Mary Ann's asking, since there's a pause point after the first 6 months, what does the prospects of funded organization look like if they're not able to continue on to January 1st through the 31st for 2004 funding? This does happen. Would the funding be open to organizations who scored highly or not in the 12 funded orgs? So essentially, no one should have that problem. But if the problem does arise, know that org would not move forward with the 2-year contract. And then that funding, we would have to go back to our leadership to figure out how they would want us to re-look at that funding. Depending when that happens, because it happening during our biennium. So the 6 months is like the end of this current biennium for us. With our budgeting process, we have to spend our money within that biennium. So if someone was not able to complete the task at hand in that 6 months, we still have some wiggle room in the next 2 years to figure out what to do with that. And I don't have an answer for you yet. Will we pull someone up who had a high score? I don't know yet. We may decide to do direct service to community. So for example, in the past, we gave out $90,000 in groceries to families through our current cohort of grantees. Or we've had to fill a need somewhere else. So I don't know the answer to that. I will get an official answer for you though in the FAQs. So yes, but we will not move forward. If you cannot complete that first 6 months, we're gonna stop right there, unfortunately. And yeah. All right. Any more questions at the end of it? All right. Okay. Thank you, Rena. So that's any other questions, thoughts? Anything we can answer? Again, we will follow up with the FAQs and update those answers that I wasn't exactly sure on, because I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And I'm okay with that. I'm a good learner. So I'll find out for you guys. Hi, Hillary. No worries. So again, y'all, we have some of our TA folks on the call with us. So thank you for coming. I'm glad it's been informative for y'all. Please do feel free to reach out and ask any questions. Me and Nancy are available. We are here. We want you to apply. Please receive support if you need support. Don't be shy, ask for what you need, but be clear with your plan, please. Tell your story wholly, the whole story, so we understand your plan. Please be very clear about what your plans are from the 6 month to the full 2 years. The cap is what? What's the cap? What's the full cap? Yes, Hillary, thank you very much. $230,000 is the cap for this part of the funding of the strategy, okay? All right, well, we're here, we'll hang out a little bit longer, but if you are done with us, then feel free to have a great evening. You're welcome, Jenny, take care. Thank you, May 24th, that's right, deadline, May 24th. Don't forget it. This is recorded, so you can always come back to relate this later on the VSK blog.
Thank you, everybody.